Hey there! Today we're going to get into some fun stuff, what I call the fire ladder. We are going to walk through the different rungs, or strategies, you can use to maximize your income and shield it from taxes. This lesson alone can save you thousands of dollars a year. So the idea is simple. Put your money first in the places that will give you the most return or have the most benefit to you. Today we are going to go through all of the, quote, rungs one by one and talk about why we are completing these first before moving on to the next. Remember, as I've mentioned before in other lessons, personal finance is just that, personal. So what follows are suggestions that would fit most Americans' situation. There may be small ways in which you can change this up, and that is fine. Do what makes sense for your situation. I'll talk about which rungs have the most room for variance as well. My suggestion is that you start with this order and research the next rung while you're working to get there if that option is available to you. So let's jump in. First up is the bedrock of every portfolio, the emergency fund. In an emergency fund, you save enough money in a savings account to cover your cost of living in case of a break of employment for a few months, or as labeled, some other type of emergency as you define it. I believe this in itself is a level of financial independence, as you are giving yourself a buffer and the financial backing to not fall into or further into debt. Consider keeping this money in a high-yield savings account and not in investments. While emergency funds aren't the most fun place to put your money, it is important that you have one, especially as you begin your FIRE journey. Having a liquid buffer gives you the highest return in this instance because it gives you a safety margin against situations where you might have to borrow money to replace your paychecks and/or draw down your investments when you don't plan on it. Remember this, the idea is that once money goes into an investment vehicle, you do not touch it until you hit FIRE. This is so that it can grow as fast as possible while you're on your way there, and so you don't have to sell your assets at a bad time for the market. The amount of money you want to put in an emergency fund is totally up to you. Some people say 3 months expenses, some say 12, but there's really no right or wrong answer for everyone. So do some thinking about this, pick a number that feels right to you, save for it, and move on to the next rung. Next up is contributing to your employer retirement plan up to the match. If you are employed, chances are good that your company has a matching program, which is awesome. If you can get a guaranteed 100% return on your money, which is what you're getting here, you take it. If you are worried about, quote, locking up your money until your 60s, don't. Later in this lesson, we're going to cover the ways that you can get money out early from retirement accounts without penalty. So at this point, you're doing pretty good. You've got a liquid emergency fund to guard against unforeseen issues. You're contributing to your FIRE portfolio. And now let's go on to the next rung, high interest debt, which is roughly defined as anything at or higher than 5% or more interest. This is the next highest return because your interest rate is your guaranteed return. If your credit card debt has 17% interest, every dollar added against the principal gets a 17% return, something which the stock market cannot guarantee, which is why we are tackling this next. If you have high interest debt, this rung can be the most overwhelming, but please try not to get discouraged. You're taking action, you're doing something about it. Keep working on it, it only keeps getting easier every dollar you pay off. As you climb out of debt on your path to FIRE, remember, the first zero in your net worth is the hardest. Not having that debt not only frees up your money to work for you, it also is a huge psychological relief. So keep going. The next rung is maxing your health savings account, or HSA for short, if that is available to you. While most people think of the HSA only as a way to store money for health expenses, the FIRE community hacks this account as the ultimate retirement fund, since unlike any other tax-sheltered account, the money goes in tax-free and comes out tax-free, and you can invest the money while it's in there. HSAs basically turn into traditional IRAs at the age of 65, but you can access this money tax-free once you hit FI, either through using it for medical expenses, or you can save your receipts now and get reimbursed for that expense anytime. For instance, if I went to the doctor in 2017, paid for the expense out of pocket with after-tax income, and saved the receipt, if I FIRE in 2025, I could, quote, cash in that receipt to get fully reimbursed. So save your receipts in an envelope and upload them somewhere safe online and get reimbursed whenever. For more information on using the HSA as an investment account, see below the video for a link to a comprehensive description. Next up, contributing the maximum to your traditional IRA or Roth IRA. Now we're getting to some fun stuff. Many people don't know this, but every year, aside from your employer's 401k/403b plan, you get an additional amount of money to put either into a Roth IRA, where the money will grow tax-free forever, or traditional IRA where you can claim that contribution on your taxes, lowering your taxable income. The reason you typically want to make sure you fill this account to the max first is because since you get to set this account up yourself and invest in whatever you want, that usually means you can pick low-cost index funds. Sometimes employer plans don't have great options for low-fee funds, which is why we max this first before your employer plan. If somehow your employer's options have lower fees than your IRA, max out your 401k first, which is the next rung, and then come back to this step after. To execute this step, go to a brokerage firm like Vanguard, set up an account, contribute money, and claim it on your taxes. Voila! Before we move on to the next rung, let's talk about whether you should fund a Roth IRA or traditional IRA. This comes down to your tax situation. Generally, you'll want to fund a Roth IRA if your income is low enough to where you won't get taxed anyway, giving you no benefit to funding a traditional IRA. On the other hand, if your income is too high, and according to the IRS you cannot claim a traditional IRA deduction, you might also want to explore a Roth IRA as an option. All right, let's keep moving up this ladder. Up next, you'll want to fill in your largest tax-sheltered option, your 401k or 403b. Since this is a relatively large pot of money for most people, this run can sometimes be the hardest to commit to psychologically, as it is a restricted account, meaning that there are penalties for just plain withdrawing your money prior to the age of 59 and a half. However, because of the power of deferring taxes, meaning that the more money you put into your 401k or 403b, the less taxes you owe, ultimately the more you'll be able to put into the market during your accumulation phase, making this rung one, in my opinion, of the most essential accounts for FIRE. A common misconception for this plan is that funds are not accessible for those under the age of 59 and a half without penalty. While this is the traditional restriction for this account, there are in fact a few ways that you can access this money before you hit the age of 59 and a half without paying penalty or taxes. I will talk a little bit about each of them, but since they could each be lessons on their own, I've added articles below this video which will help you go down the rabbit hole on each method. The most popular method is called the Roth conversion ladder. The Roth conversion ladder is a strategy where, once you hit your FIRE number and to retire early and therefore are no longer earning a sizable taxable income, you can go ahead then and transfer your money from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, where the contributions will sit and be available for withdrawal tax-free after 5 years. When you move some money from a traditional IRA to a Roth, the money is taxed at the time you make the transfer as regular income for that tax year. So if you play your tax situation right, you can finagle it so that you can place just enough into your Roth so that you pay little or no taxes on that amount that tax year. This is huge, because that would mean that your money went in tax-free through your traditional IRA and then came out tax-free using a Roth. Another tactic, called Rule 72T, allows penalty-free withdrawals before the age of 59 and a half. This is a little bit more complicated, and people who use Rule 72T commit to getting, quote, periodic payments for at least 5 years based on an equation regarding your life expectancy that the IRS uses, among other things. The final option, if all else fails, you can also just take the penalty. While not ideal, there is math to support that in some instances, taking the withdrawal penalty still puts you ahead of where you would have been if you invested that money in a taxable account. To me, this is a testament to how powerful leveraging your tax-deferred accounts are. All right, the final rung, and this one's simple. Any money left over after spending should go into an after-tax index fund. Depending on your strategy, I would consider keeping this 100% stocks and then managing your asset allocation through your tax-sheltered accounts, as likely this is where the bulk of your money will be, and there is no tax penalties for buying and selling in a retirement account. Just like with your traditional IRA, you can set up an account through a brokerage firm like Vanguard. That was a lot, so let's recap each step real quick. 1. Build a solid foundation with an emergency fund. 2. Get that free money with your employer's match. 3. Pay off any high-interest debt. 4. Max out that HSA. 5. Contribute the max to your traditional IRA or Roth IRA. 6. Contribute the max to your 401k or 403b. And 7. Put the rest into a brokerage account. You think you have that covered and want to go even further? Let's briefly cover some advanced techniques. If you are looking for even more of an edge, you can, quote, front-load your tax-advantaged vehicles by contributing the maximum amount as early as possible in a tax year instead of equal payments in each paycheck over the course of the year. The benefit of this is that you're filling your tax-sheltered accounts with money first, so it has more time in the market. It also is a safeguard against getting laid off and not being able to take full advantage of your tax-sheltered limit for that year. If you want to do this, make sure to check in with your HR department first to ensure that you will still receive your employer's match, as different companies have different ways of contributing their portion. This is an advanced technique as it requires some extra cash flow management, meaning that you'll have to make sure that you still have enough money to live on while the bulk, or all of, your first paychecks over the year are going straight to your 401k or 403b. Another advanced technique is funding a mega backdoor Roth. In short, a mega backdoor Roth allows you to transfer a lot more money into your Roth IRA and shield even more of your income from taxes. This only works if your employer allows you to transfer your money from your 401k or 403b to a Roth IRA or traditional IRA while you're still working for them. I'm not going to dive into the nuance of the mega backdoor Roth, but I will put a link below for those who are interested in learning more. Before we wrap up today, I'd like to add a quick note on mortgages, as some of you who have them might be wondering where this fits into the fire ladder. If you have a mortgage, you'll want to consider whether or not you want to pay that off first prior to setting off on your accumulation phase. I personally have a mortgage, and since my interest rate is below 5%, I pay my mortgage the standard monthly payment and invest the rest of my money I have into the rungs of the fire ladder. The reason I do this is because of something called, quote, sequence of returns, which is a fancy way of saying that since we don't know what the future of the market will look like, we might hit some periods of poor returns. By investing over a longer time frame, the less of a risk you have of investing during a poor time in history. However, there's no right or wrong here. If it would make you feel much better owning your house outright instead of keeping up mortgage payments, then go for it. If you do tackle the mortgage first, I recommend that you do this after setting up your emergency fund, as well as meeting your employer match and paying off any high interest debt. No matter where you are, you signed up for this course because you wanted to learn how to get started, and there is no better time than now. Your action item for today, and from here on out, is to start climbing your way up the ladder. You might not be able to reach the top right now, but that is okay. Keep working on increasing your savings rate, increasing your income, and the rest will follow.